Tensions between the UK and European Union post-Brexit have taken a landmark step towards easing. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen have agreed on an overhaul of post-Brexit trade rules in Northern Ireland. This comes after more than a year of talks between London and Brussels, where the two strove to reset strained ties after Brexit. Sunak says the agreement will chart a new forward for the people of Northern Ireland. The revised protocol was announced by the name of Windsor Framework. He added that the UK and the EU have had their differences, but this is a new beginning of a new chapter.
The United Kingdom and European Union may have had our differences in the past, but we are allies, trading partners and friends, something that we've seen clearly in the past year as we joined with others to support Ukraine. This is the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship. For a quarter of a century, the Belfast Good Friday Agreement has endured because, at its heart, is respect for the aspirations and identity of all communities. Today's agreement is about preserving that delicate balance and charting a new way forward.
The agreement is the culmination of 4 months of intense negotiations by British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly and the Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton-Harris. The deal was signed between the UK and European Union as part of Brexit. The protocol has kept Northern Ireland in the European single market, and this has angered the province's pro-UK Democratic Unionist Party. However, Tory hardliners are still warning that Parliament should not be rushed into accepting a deal.
I think the whole thing is an impossible situation, and they have an agreement and they should stick to the agreement, and if they can get out of it by this year, well and good.
The revised pact caters to three main issues: checks on trade to the Northern Ireland from the UK, the role of the European Court of Justice, and the place of Northern Ireland and UK's internal market following the enactment of the New Deal. Majority of the controls and checks will be removed on goods remaining in the Northern Ireland. The role of the European Court of Justice as the ultimate arbiter of disputes will also be removed. The European Union will no longer have the right to automatically launch infraction proceedings.
Judgment annuls Commission decision.
You know, it's about time we got the act together, and it's time that people know what's ahead of them, and you know, the qualifications between the whole lot of them. It's time to sit down and talk about it, because the way it's going on now, it's ruined people's lives and also causing a lot of problems to people, you know, different peoples.
The new agreement is based on a proposal around Norway's relation with the EU. This might enable the EU to disapply new laws in Northern Ireland. For more on this, we are now joined by Dr. Nigel Fletcher, a political historian at King's College London. His research interests include political opposition, UK political institutions and the Constitution, and British political history since 1945. Thanks very much, Dr. Nigel Fletcher, for speaking to us. Now, the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said that this new deal is a new chapter between the EU and the United Kingdom after the tensions that arose following Brexit. How big a deal is it, according to you?
Well, I think that he'll be hoping it will certainly be seen as a new start. We've had around 6.5 years of negotiations of some form with the EU, both before and after the UK's formal exit from the European Union. And really it comes down to this one intractable issue of Northern Ireland. The plain fact of the matter is that if you're going to have a situation where the European Union and the United Kingdom are going to have different trading arrangements, there has to be a border somewhere of some description. And of course, the difficulty that successive governments have had to wrestle with is the fact that that causes huge problems in terms of the United Kingdom's constitutional settlement. We've got the Good Friday Belfast Agreement, which says that the border on the island of Ireland between the UK and the Republic of Ireland cannot be a hard border in the way that we would expect there to be a border between any other trading bloc and between any other country. And so trying to avoid that hard border has been a red line in the negotiations. But equally, the alternative to that, if you don't have a border there, is that you have to have a border in the Irish Sea. And that is what the Northern Ireland Protocol effectively put into operation, that Boris Johnson negotiated to get the Brexit deal through when he negotiated it. That, of course, caused huge difficulties with the unionists in Northern Ireland who felt, I think quite understandably, that putting a border or barriers to trade between the mainland of Great Britain and Northern Ireland was something that they couldn't accept. So it's really been a very difficult issue to try and square that circle, to try and overcome those two fundamental constitutional issues. And I think the deal that we're seeing, Rishi Sunak, I think, is portraying this as a workable solution that will remove some of those main trading barriers that currently exist under the arrangements that were negotiated by Boris Johnson to get Brexit through in the first place. And these arrangements will effectively ensure that the whole UK can be regulated from Westminster and therefore preserve the union. So it's pretty fundamental. And this is an issue which has been going on for such a long time now that I think many people will perhaps be a little bit tired of it. And that might also be to his advantage, because when Boris Johnson fought in a general election and then got Brexit done, it was under that phrase, getting Brexit done. Well, Brexit hasn't actually been done, really, until this issue has been sorted. So it remains to be seen whether it will be accepted by the Unionists in Northern Ireland and by some of his own backbenchers. But I think if it is accepted, then I think we can certainly say that as far as is possible, Brexit, in the terms that were envisaged when the UK voted to leave, may finally actually be able to be said to be done.
Now, Rishi Sunak says the UK and EU will form what he calls the Windsor framework. He talks about smooth trade ties and more. Is this really a case of friends despite differences hitting new dimensions?
Well, I think that his acknowledgement and also Ursula von der Leyen's acknowledgement that these have been difficult negotiations in the past, and certainly under Theresa May and then under Boris Johnson, we had quite fractious negotiations going on with the EU. I think what we're seeing is actually a noticeable warmth in their personal relationship. I think the change in personalities, having Rishi Sunak as a new Prime Minister, having a relatively new President of the European Commission in place, perhaps have given a new dynamic to it. And certainly there were a few questions at the press conference just now about whether this is a case of them being able to sort of get on a bit better. It certainly seems from their body language and the language that they're using in the press conference that they certainly see that this is a friendly agreement. This is something that they've worked on over many months. And I think that, as I say, if it does pass, this does represent a new start and perhaps a period of slightly quieter relations between the UK and the EU.
All right. On that note, thanks very much, Dr. Fletcher, for speaking to WION.